It's like people always say, well, how do you write, or how do you come up with characters? And really, we struggle around the question and try to answer it, but really it's hard to even say how it's done, because I don't think it's something that artists understand even themselves. Like, how do you make a picture? How do you, where does it come from? That spring of it, I think, is magical, it's mysterious, and so that carries over. And if you have a subject too, if you have situations that are less than clear, so you're sort of in a world that's interesting and beautiful and magical to be in. I think that's why sometimes I feel lucky to be doing this work, because I feel like for someone who loves stories, that I just have a front row seat for a story, and I'm always asking myself, what's next, and I'm interested in it, and I'm pulled into it, and it becomes your life. I mean, for whatever time you're in a story, it easily does become, it can become like your whole life, and you're very invested, and you're in this world, and and sometimes I'm sad when it's done.
Well, and the other thing is, you said this beautiful world, but at the same time, many of the worlds that you find yourself creating are frankly not beautiful. In fact, the beauty comes in showing the truth of the horror of them. Perhaps would the book you've just finished, that will be published in March, be an example of that?
Absolutely. I mean, the book I just did, The Dew Breaker.
The Dew Breaker.
It's interconnected story. It's really about it's about a torturer and his victims, and all these people, how they were connected to him. I think when I say beauty, I mean just in being able to recreate in some ways a world. And I draw a lot from reality, from real events, and from a world that could have actually existed. And I think when I say beauty, I think in a way it's sort of a, the people say there's always some ugliness in beauty, and that makes it. And in being able to bring people together, and being able to have, say, within the same pages, these victims, and they speak. And in a way,
giving a voice to people who can't speak for themselves.
Exactly. And this book especially echoes back to the Duvalier era, and where so many people died in prisons. And so a lot of these voices are people who might have escaped the prisons. And so the worlds are sad, and there are moments where it's just devastating to sit there and write them, or to reread them. When I'm writing something like that, it's just, that doesn't even come close to the horror that it was for one person. With the Farming of Bones, knowing that 30,000 people died in that massacre, and each of them had a voice, each of them had loved ones, and it just is nothing close. I will never do it justice. The effort is not to reproduce, it's sort of to interpret, And so it's the same with everything I write, because there's so, I think there's a parallel for it in life. It's even that much more horrifying, because just I can think of 1,000 of cases that are just like that. It's humbling, because you're so aware of like how little you can come to that actual pain that one person experiences. Sometimes I read fiction from Bosnia or Croatia, or from the Latin American version. I feel like, oh, that's Haiti. That's such a gift about being able to write too, is that to connect those things. We all think we're having a very singular, unique, sometimes horrifying experience, but it's happened before to somebody else. And as sad as that is, it will happen again to someone else. And sometimes we're strengthened by that knowledge. And I think when you read other people's experience, it calls out that thing in you.